Welcome to the presentation titled A Conceptual Model for Teacher-Centered Wellness Professional Development. My name is Francheska Starks, and I am an assistant professor at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, which is located in Knoxville, Tennessee in the United States. My research and teaching are focused in the areas of cultural studies and social and emotional well-being, and one of my goals is to center and leverage marginalized perspectives of teachers and students. My presentation will begin with a brief introduction of my work, which will be followed by explanations about the methodology, findings, and conclusions. I'll begin with the background and context of K-12 education in the U.S., although this is mirrored in many other countries worldwide. Teacher attrition rates are high, resulting in frequent teacher turnover. At least 40% of new teachers leave the profession in less than 5 years. High turnover has associated costs such as disrupted continuity in instructional programming and the need to mentor and assist new teachers. Teachers who stay in the field of education often experience high rates of burnout and become disengaged, and researchers have found that teacher well-being is essential for retaining and sustaining currently practicing teachers. Seligman defines well-being as experiencing positive emotion, participation in positive relationships, cultivating a sense of meaning or purpose, and feelings of accomplishment. So we find that there is a need to reduce the impacts of work stress in the teaching profession, and some districts have responded. However, many of the wellness interventions that are designed for teachers are developed through a top-down approach that is not teacher-centered. And currently, those supports may also be subverted by other district policies that are incongruent with key aspects of wellness. Therefore, there is a need for interventions that are both teacher-centered and equipped to support educators with addressing systemic barriers that will impede their wellness practices. So this research documents our development of a conceptual model that can be used to design professional development programming that is focused on teacher wellness, that is both teacher-centered and justice-oriented. To create the conceptual model that would guide the teacher wellness program, we turned to 3 theoretical frameworks that could inform our design. Critical professional development supported us with using best practices for professional development programs in our design, while also ensuring that we attended to the systemic nature of issues teachers may face in and outside of the school environments. Healing-centered engagement is a set of practices that's specifically designed to address trauma, and it was instrumental in guiding us to consider and appropriately address traumatic experiences that may be discussed and unearthed during vulnerable moments in the wellness program sessions. Finally, critical love praxis is a pedagogical orientation that guided us to prioritize the care and concern for our community alongside social justice, and it demanded that we recognize that love does not and cannot exist absent of justice. Our key research questions were: how can we combine attributes of all 3 of these theoretical frameworks to create a conceptual framework to adequately address the need for teacher-centered intervention and interventions that address the systemic nature of problems that are faced by teachers in schools. We also wanted to know what planning documents we could use or produce using our conceptual framework to develop a professional development program. Our process for data collection began with a team of 3 researchers working collectively to identify literature for each theoretical framework. Next, each researcher read all documents to identify salient themes from the literature. Then all researchers compared salient themes that were identified individually, and we discussed any discrepancies. And finally, researchers agreed on salient characteristics of each theoretical framework. To analyze the data, we conducted a theoretical analysis by reading across all three frameworks to identify shared characteristics. If a characteristic was present in two or more theoretical frameworks, then we included it as part of the conceptual framework. We then identified 6 shared characteristics that we used, and we used those characteristics to inform the drafting of our planning documents. So now I'll present the results based on each research question. The first question is, how can we combine salient attributes of critical professional development, healing-centered engagement, and critical love praxis to create a conceptual model for teacher-focused well-being? We found that there were 6 shared characteristics among the critical professional development, healing-centered engagement, and critical love praxis. The shared characteristics are in blue across the top row of this table, and they guided us to create professional development wellness sessions that were dialogical between facilitators and participants. They were critical and political in their content. They were culturally aware, fluid in their power structures. They positioned teachers as having agency and supporting participants with resisting oppressive forces. So these were characteristics that were present in at least 2 of the 3 theoretical frameworks that we referenced, and we used them to develop the guidelines for our professional development program. Research question 2 is about how our conceptual model informed our development of planning documents for professional development programming. One of the most important documents that we developed for planning was a list of critical questions to consider for each of the shared characteristics. We developed a set of questions for each characteristic to help us ensure that as we planned content for each session, that we were purposefully attending to each characteristic within the plan. So here are a few examples, and the first is for dialogic engagement. So you'll see on the screen a list of questions that we asked ourselves while planning for the professional development to ensure that we were attending to dialogical engagement within those sessions. Next, we have some examples of questions that helped us ensure that our program also fostered cultural awareness, as well as fluid and bidirectional power. So these questions here on the screen are questions that we made sure to ask ourselves as we were planning the sessions to ensure, again, that we were tending to cultural awareness and fluid and bidirectional power. What we learned is that we can combine existing theories to create a conceptual framework that supports the design of a teacher-centered wellness program. We also know that using these particular theories, critical professional development, healing-centered engagement, and critical love praxis will support us in planning sessions that can address teachers' trauma and also encourage them to resist systemic barriers that may impede their well-being. While the conceptual model is useful for planning the wellness professional development program, we anticipate that there will be barriers to recruitment and implementation. So our next steps are to investigate the process of using this model with teachers who are currently in K-12 educational settings. Here are my references for this presentation. And I thank you for your attention and invite you to contact me for further interest, questions, or collaboration. Thank you.